I found it really important to pre be prepared for discomfort.
I do hope you write a book. And I'm being serious.
Sounds like a lot of work, Will.
It is a lot.
You can hire someone, Colby. You can have the best intentions, to use the family analogy, of having like a nice Sunday roast dinner with everyone around the table. But sometimes, you know, the in-laws can be a bit disruptive, or there's a cousin that just doesn't want to be at the table and they go off and do their own thing, right? So
that's right. Actually, roast dinner is terrible. I don't even like roast dinner, right? There's that attitude. Right?
It's very English, Colby.
That's right.
So we'll do a Thanksgiving analogy. Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and welcome to the stream, an unscripted, unedited, free-flowing conversation featuring guests who reject the status quo with a bias for action in the world of water. My name is Tom Freyberg. I'm an environmental journalist and content creator specializing in water.
And I'm Will Sarney, water strategy advisor and investor, doing my part to solve wicked water problems.
And a big thanks to our continued sponsor, Raymond James, and our charity partner, Frank Water. And we are delighted to be almost midway through our season 8, which has a focus on legends. So people who have made a dent in the water universe in their very fruitful careers. So we're delighted for this episode to welcome to the microphone Colby Manwaring, who is the former CEO of Innovyze, the chair of Envirosuite, and also the director of many other companies. Colby, welcome to the stream, and good to see you.
Thanks, Tom. Will, great to see you. Looking forward to having some conversation. The legend label is well, that's a bit daunting, right? That's a pretty high bar. So hopefully, I have something useful to say.
Yeah, pretty significant expectations, during this conversation, Colby. It probably aged you or made you feel older than you are. I'm quite sure, but
we purposely use it in the introduction just to kind of, just to set the bar and put the pressure on. But yeah, great to see you, Colby. I think we last spoke just after, I think, the sale from Innovyze to Autodesk, when you were still at Autodesk, and then you came and spoke for me at a conference in Amsterdam, and we had a great discussion on all things digital and AI. But it's been a couple of years since then, so we'd love to sort of just start off by saying, what are you up to right now? Because we'll come back to the actual sale, which was, a huge record amount from Innovyze to Autodesk for the 1 billion, and we'll get into that. But actually, how are you spending your days right now following that?
Yeah, so as you know, I spent a couple of years at almost 3 years at Autodesk.
Yeah.
Since that period, I've taken a step into, I guess, the one step up in terms of continuing to work in the water and environment market. So as you mentioned, I'm the chair of a company called Envirosuite. It's an Australian company specializing in environmental intelligence and air, water, noise, and vibration. I also sit on the board of a company called SBS, which is a utility-centric technology, but power utility. So, water and power, those are kind of some of those civilization underpinning technologies. I like to be involved in that. I'm also involved in a smaller company, Mentor APM, which focuses on asset management for water infrastructure. And then finally, I'm also the chair at One Click LCA, which is around life cycle analysis, particularly with environmental impact focus. All of these are software companies, right? I love software. I think it's a place that you can have a disproportional impact as a investor, as an inventor, as an executive, just because that technology is indeed eating the world, as was said, well, nearly 2 decades ago, not by me, right? Software is eating the world, but I love it. So not currently an executive and working sun up to sundown like you kind of have to do when you're a CEO, but still getting my hands dirty and keeping my fingers in several pies.
Colby, what got you hooked on digital tech and its role in water and energy, sort of the inner underpinnings of society and infrastructure. It's like, what was the aha moment, if you will?
Yeah, well, actually, I can pinpoint the moment. I was I
What a
was
setup.
sitting in my undergraduate degree in civil and environmental engineering at Brigham Young University, and I was sitting in the weekly engineering seminar where business leaders, past graduates, so on, would kind of come in and do a show and tell on what they were doing in their career. And a gentleman came in and said, "Hey, I'm involved in creating environmental modeling software, and here's a bit of what it does." And so, pulled up,
Mhm.
showed a few things, and then pointed out that, hey, this software, actually it was a small suite of software, is being developed here in a graduate laboratory at the university, and we also sell it commercially and so on. And as I sat there, having gone through several years already of all the mechanics of being an engineer and contemplating, do I want a career in designing pipes or designing bridges and that is fantastic stuff, right? It's really essential stuff. But I sat there and thought, wait, so if we codify, if we write software that actually does all these calculations and all the hard work, the somewhat tedious work, I could have a much, much bigger impact on the
Mhm.
career, on the profession of engineering, rather than just being a guy
Right.
who does a lot of engineering himself. And so I went actually right after that seminar to the programming lab where they were working on this and said, "Hey, I'd like a job here." And
That was it.
fortunately, they hired me, and that's what kicked it off. So almost, I guess, before day one, I hadn't even graduated yet with a bachelor's degree. Before day one of my career, I jumped in and thought software is the way to go here.
So that's really interesting. So is it fair to say that the nugget here was your desire, passion, drive to have an impact at scale? And the way to do that was digital.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. I did start as a mechanical engineer in school, and mechanical engineering is really cool, but there's a lot of really working on little things and widgets, and I pretty quickly said I would like to go outside and be more engaged in society and environment. So I did switch to civil engineer, kind of with that societal impact in
Right.
mind. And then, quite frankly, well, I love water in all ways. Of course, it's essential. Water is life, right? But uh, fishing, swimming, boating, I mean, all the things, all the amenities of water, I just love it. And so what better way to spend my life involved in than getting paid to work with
Yeah.
water?
Okay, so you definitely fit in the category of legend, by the way, now, after that. Just want to
You
reaffirm, that
Good, yeah.
we got it right, Colby.
Okay, okay. Yeah,
you you've
yeah,
earned your
it's
stripes,
it's really
Colby.
been it's really been good. I look back and of course my children who are now university age and starting on careers, they would say, "Well, how did you decide to be
Oh
wildly
yeah.
successful?" And I say, "Well, I didn't exactly decide that. What I decided is, I wanted to have an impact on society. I really did enjoy engineering. I loved it. And then, the water and environment side was just a natural fit for my personal interest. And you add those things together and then you actually get a little passion around your work and around your
Right.
career. And then, success is much, much easier when you love what you do.
It's interesting. I mean, there are a lot of things that are interesting, but in the conversations we've had as part of the season, this theme seems to really flow through all of them in terms of how do you make choices in your career? And, like when your children ask, when young professionals ask, well, how did you land wherever you landed? And, how did you know? So that choice piece of the puzzle here is really interesting. And some of the things that are reoccurring are, burning curiosity and having an impact. And it seems to be really a very common thread through all the conversations we have. And I will quote Yogi Berra, Tom, again. I think I did it in the last episode. When you come to a fork in the road, take it. And I've always like held on to that. It's like, that's so interesting,
Will, you're exactly right. One of the things that I have attempted to do my whole career and continue to do is when there's something interesting and I could be involved, do it, try it,
Take it.
take it, right? Like when I went to the lab, I'll have to admit I was barely competent as a software developer, a software programmer. But I'll tell you what, when they asked me if I was a good software developer, of course I said yes.
Right.
Absolutely, right? I'm a brilliant software developer. Hire me. And later, when we spun out a commercial side of the of this research lab, and people say, well, who's going to do the sales and marketing? A bunch of engineers sitting around a table. Who's going to do the sales and marketing? Everyone averts their eyes, it seems, in an engineering space. You talk about sales and marketing. But I said, me, I'll do that. That sounds really exciting. That sounds interesting. I'm sure I can do sales and marketing. How hard could it be? Turns out it
Okay,
is really difficult. But
curiosity, impact, and a heck of a lot of spunk.
yeah, so yeah, jump on an opportunity. That's how
I
I've
think it's that
managed to do it.
I love it.
that curiosity, right? And I know, Will, in the previous conversations, as you mentioned, that we talk about chance, and there was a conversation about luck as well. But then
Yes.
we had this great discussion. Actually, there is an element of luck, but there's an element of chasing that curiosity, saying yes to opportunities, and actually putting yourself in the right place. And as you said, Colby, there are things you weren't 100% competent in, but it didn't stop you putting yourself forward and saying, I think I can bet on my future self and do that. So I think there's, with there's definitely a noticeable trend amongst the different, I guess, legends we're speaking to on the podcast. But coming back to that element of scale, which you mentioned, where you saw you could have an impact within civil engineering and software. Talk to us about the time kind of within Innovyze then, because how many years were you there, and then kind of getting on the radar of Autodesk, and then we'll kind of come on to that landmark acquisition and the process involved. Yeah, were you there about just over 4 years, I think, at Innovyze, right?
Yeah, well, it's a longer story than that. The Innovyze piece itself, roughly 4 years before going to Autodesk. But if we roll it back a little bit, I was the CEO of a company called XP Solutions, which also is in water technology, a lot in stormwater and flood, and somewhat a competitor / collaborator with Innovyze for a period of time. And throughout my career, I have always been looking to say, how do we have a bigger impact? How do we get bigger as a business? Right? It's great to develop software, develop products, or deliver projects kind of as fast as you can. But there's also something to be said for looking outside and saying, what can we not do here?
Mm-hmm.
And is someone else doing a good job? And do you think they would partner up with us? And then maybe we could actually merge businesses and really, turbocharge growth here. That mindset, was pretty much with me from day one, just because I wanted to do bigger things and more things. So Innovyze, when I took over as CEO of Innovyze, it was actually the stage where XP Solutions and Innovyze were pulled together under EQT Partners, a private equity sponsor, and we merged to cover more fully the I guess spectrum of water problems, from drinking water to floodwaters to stormwater to asset management of water infrastructure, right? Kind of pulling together a larger portfolio of software products that could benefit the water community. So kind of that stage, I already had a decade plus under my belt of adding together companies that did good things in the water
Mhm.
software space.
No, go ahead.
You ask a little bit, how did we get the attention of Autodesk? Interestingly, a small company in the UK was probably one of the linchpins of getting Autodesk's attention. It was a company called Micro Drainage, founded in Newbury in the UK back in the 80s. So obviously before I was involved, but it was specialized in design, right? In design of clean water, stormwater, and somewhat in clean water systems. And micro drainage became part of my group. We acquired micro drainage, or actually right around the financial crisis time. I think it was 2009. And of course, Autodesk is very design centric. And this company, Micro Drainage, had built product that worked inside of Autodesk or worked, outside as a standalone system. So that partnership with Autodesk started very early in one of the kind of originating companies, if you will. And that same pattern was followed a couple times in the other companies, the XP Solutions Company, Innovyze itself, back when it was called MWH Soft, also had Autodesk friendly or Autodesk compatible technology. So look, going back to you probably can't do everything really well yourself. Like building a CAD system yourself just for water infrastructure, like that's a pretty tall order. Why not partner up and make sure that whatever you're doing is actually workable within a larger ecosystem that engineers and cities have to work in anyway. So that's kind of how we got on Autodesk screen, was being compatible and working with them to kind of fill that gap for water infrastructure that they didn't serve very well.
It sounds like, again, you've always had this view of developing holistic solutions. So not just focusing on one thing, but focusing on solving a suite of problems and picking the right partners or acquiring the right ones along the way. That's
Yeah,
interesting.
well, look, I mean, despite our somewhat strange attempts to separate water into drinking water and wastewater, like, it's all water, right? You can't really solve water problems by isolating arbitrary
Right.
segments of water. Right? Water is water. It all circulates around, and so the broader the range of solutions for all water problems, the better the outcome, I think, for the customers, which of course is ultimately how you grow a business
Right.
and so on and so forth. So yeah, Will. More is better when it comes to solutions to water problems, I guess.
I think it's interesting you mentioned you're looking, when you're in that growth stage and scaling, you're looking at if another company can do something better than you. Obviously, you're growing through acquiring them, and then eventually that group of companies you're building is acquired by Autodesk. Can you talk to us a bit about that journey and maybe the kind of the integration? Because obviously when Innovyze is buying companies, they're absorbed into that company, and then Autodesk is enormous kind of global. I mean, Innovyze was a chunky company, but then to go into, so you've got smaller companies being acquired to then be acquired, and you've got different kind of solutions, product companies, cultures that all kind of get mixed in together. So I'd love to kind of get your take on that part of the last years as well, if you can.
Yeah. So interesting aspect, right? Building a company, right? You start hopefully with a meaningful problem to be solved that someone cares about and is going to pay you to solve. And of course, you do your best, hire great people, build a good culture, I tend to believe in, mission driven companies, right? Where there is a purpose, a noble cause, if you will, that allows you to attract people and rally around solving a problem. That's great. And you work on that and you grow and you look along the way. looking for people that are doing it better than you, that's absolutely essential. But whether you intend to beat them in a competitive standoff, or in fact you're saying, well, it'd be great if we worked together, and maybe together we would be better than separate. Either perspective, though, you got to keep your head up and looking around for good solutions or better solutions than your own. And then the second thing that I think the multiple founders of the companies that we acquired at Autodesk, because I like to believe myself also, we're not thinking of, hey, how can I sell this thing? You're actually thinking, how do I make this business as successful as I can, partnering and building and going and going. And then in the end, you ended up selling it, not because you were just in it to build it and sell it, but because it made good sense for the industry and for your customers, and ultimately, for investors and owners, it has to make sense too. But that's what occurred with Innovyze, right? I mentioned the micro drainage company, right? Built serving a specific part of the water market. XP Solutions, built serving a specific part of the market with passion and dedication. Innovyze, formerly MWH Soft, again, built around a certain market and segmentation. And when you look at like, how can we scale, how can we grow faster? You can build it yourself or you can buy it. And the build it yourself option is great if there's not a good solution already, out there leading in the market. The buy it option is really good otherwise, in my opinion. However, then you got to get along with a new family, right? So there's not much, it's not hugely different than getting married, right? You don't just marry one person, you marry a whole family. And, that can be tough.
By the way, Colby, coming off of the holidays, that's sort of a perfect perspective to offer up,
Yeah, exactly. When
This
you
is not
acquire, when you
yeah.
merge companies, it's just holiday all the time. You're together all the time. You don't get it. I'll go home. You actually got to live with each other the whole time. And as the leader of a company that is acquired, right? That takes, I guess, a mindset of I guess, humility and energy. As an acquiring company, so I've been on both sides of this. I've been the acquirer and the acquiree. As the acquirer, it also takes humility and energy. And the simple fact is, when you merge companies together, there's not the intention is not to make one company or another company the winner. It's in fact to make everybody a winner as a new company, and in fact serve the market better, right? Serve the customers better. That's really what you're trying to do, not just make a bigger company for the sake of a bigger company, but actually build some value for customers and shareholders. And it's hard, right? Especially for some people that I've worked directly with who, they have a very, very strong outlook and attitude about my ideas are the best ideas there are, and I'm not really sure why we need anybody else around here. That attitude will kill a good company.
That will kill a good company. That'll kill a team.
It will.
You're right.
That along with the mindset of we've never done it like that before.
Okay. Well, we don't do that.
Yeah, we don't do that here. Right.
We don't do that here.
Yeah, we don't do it exactly.
That's not how we do. That's not how we do things around here.
That's right. And
but it's interesting, Colby, because if you think about, you mentioned you've been on both sides of the fence, right? You've bought companies and you've been bought, so it's great perspective. But if you're talking about buying a startup with a small amount of staff, say 15 to 30 people, that then come into a much bigger organization, you get the benefit of the infrastructure of the finance of the bigger team. But sometimes those two cultures and the dynamic of a small tiny startup compared to a company with thousands of people can almost be at odds with each other. So you can have the best intentions, to use the family analogy of having like a nice Sunday roast dinner with everyone around the table, but sometimes, you know, the in-laws can be a bit disruptive, or there's a cousin that just
Yeah,
doesn't want to be at the table and they go off and do their own thing, right? So
that's right. Actually, roast dinner is terrible. I don't even like roast dinner, right? There's that attitude, right?
It's very English,
That's
Colby.
right.
so
You're gonna have
we'll do a Thanksgiving analogy, okay? But do you see what I'm saying though? If you've got a small,
Yeah.
yeah, and they kind of, they haven't been used to such bureaucracy and big teams, and then suddenly they're in this huge organization. So I'm always interested to see
Yeah.
that integration process, and like you say, you've been on both sides of the fence on that one.
Colby.
Yeah. So I guess one point is, as you're the founder or the lead of a small company, a startup, I found it really important to be prepared for discomfort and I actively prepare your little team and company for much bigger things.
Right.
So, um, you know, it will be a shock when you join a much larger company. There's just no way around it. But again, going back to the humility and energy point of view, the idea that if you have not built a culture of we're the best at everything, everything we do is exactly right, and we shouldn't do it any differently. If you haven't kind of built that house of cards, well, then it's not going to collapse so drastically when you do become part of a larger organization that does things differently and
Right.
and is not as agile or not as quick. So again, it kind of begins with the culture and attitude when you are a startup. Now, it's hard, right? So Innovyze acquired a company in 2018, but just as you described, it must have been like 33 people or so, right? A couple founders, very good at what they did, very engaged and very involved with their staff. And they joined Innovyze, which, I mean, we were by no means were we a monster company with thousands of people, but we were 10 times bigger than they were. And it was interesting. There were two co-founders there, and I saw one co-founder kind of almost go into his his shell and just like hibernate because it was just too much, right? It just could not handle the complexity, or well, it wasn't even necessarily complexity. It was like, hey, we actually are doing a lot of things simultaneously, and and there are systems and procedures that we have to follow. The other co-founder, he really leaned in and just said, hey, this is really fascinating. I had no idea I had no idea we needed to do like XYZ. Just and that's normal, right? At the beginning of my career, I had no idea what you had to do to run a multinational, software company, and you just kind of have to figure it out the hard way. So that co-founder really leaned in and engaged and continued to grow and learn. And so, um, I think that was a reasonably successful integration, and it also demonstrated the fact that sometimes the best option is to leave if you have been acquired and you don't like it.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Right? I mean,
Colby, did you, I'm sorry to interrupt, but did you have any sense of this during the due diligence? I mean, did you get a read as to how the two co-founders might deal with all of this? I mean, and I'm looking for insights that are valuable to, people that are listening, and I hope you're going to write a book and you include something, this story.
I guess for the due diligence phase, a lot of that is just about time. Did you spend enough time together
Right.
to get a sense of the team and the people that are joining? Because data rooms and
Oh
written
yeah.
statements and the pitch, so to speak. Of course, it's always going to be all happy and lucky. We're so lucky to be in this situation. Right? That's what everyone is going to say. But, you know, do they believe it, and what do they really want to do? You got to spend a bit more time, person to person, and see. One of the things, Will, that I think is important is, like, again, as you're building a company or in that acquisition, you know, you're going to be acquired phase is, does a co-founder have a vision for what they want to be doing next?
Right.
And if the vision is, well, I'll do whatever you want me to do, that's probably not true.
Well, it's always not true.
Right? Right? It not that the attitude or the sentiment is wrong, or it's just like, well, no, what you got to have ambition and vision and goals for what you want to do as part of this larger organization, not just an attitude of like, yeah, I'll just do whatever you want. Because, you know, the passion, the fire, the energy of personal motivation, that's what carries people through difficult, bumpy integrations. The same was with me, right? When I joined Autodesk. So that was a case of, you know, here's a company that has, I think when Innovyze was acquired, they had 12,000 employees.
Wow.
Right? 12, wow. And that's still not a giant company. You know, it's much bigger than Innovyze was. But, you know, when they joined, of course, one of the first questions that any acquirers of Innovyze asked me, says, "Hey, Colby, are you staying?" And I said, "Absolutely, I am staying." Well, what's your vision? And I had a vision. This is what we need to do, and here's what I want to do, and here's how I want to do it. Now, they then might say, "Oh, ooh, we don't like that." Well, that's okay. Like, better to find out early than late.
Right.
To say, "Oh, Colby, you know, we like the company. It looks pretty good, but your vision and what you want to do is not really compatible with what we want to do here." Now, of course, that didn't happen with Autodesk. They said, "Oh, that fits really well. We really want to create that water specialty here," and so my point of view is, in due diligence and as you're selling or buying, like,
Right.
founders got to have a vision for what they want to do next and how they want to be involved, and not just be passive.
Right.
I think it would depend
that's
on
another
the
real. Sorry.
Sorry, well, I was just going to say, I think it depends on the co-founder, because you've mentioned a few examples, Colby, where you've got some that will be like, okay, I've just spent every waking hour of the day building this company we're going to sell, and actually being part of something bigger with a vision and a regular paycheck. So I think will actually be a relief. And there's probably other co-founders that they don't want to maybe be part of that bigger infrastructure and bigger bureaucracy, and that's okay, right? They want to go back to the company and build another one with 33 people. But I think it's a case of, like I say, be transparent and kind of get that out in the open from the start, as opposed to finding out several months in, and that unhappy individual co-founder's then going to breed a bit of unhappiness and discontent within their own company that have come with them. So it's kind of getting that open early doors. Yeah.
Right, and just being aware of that as you build the company. So as I built, say, XP and then on through Innovyze, again, my point of view is like, well, I really like this. I want to keep doing it. And secondly, I want to make sure this company is not dependent on me as some sort of hero to make the whole thing work.
Right.
Because you don't know what the future holds, or you don't know, despite all the due diligence, you don't know what it might look like in 2 or 3 years after merging companies. And so as a founder or as a leader of a smaller company, my goal was always, of course, make it as big and as best as it can be. And I want to be involved, but I cannot be the hero of all situations. So if this company needs to survive, grow, and thrive without me, and I better be prepared for that as a leader. That's a tough thing to get in your head, right? To say, I love being the hero and I love being in charge, but I better make sure that it doesn't all depend on me.
The old classic bus test, right? If you get hit by a bus tomorrow, can the company still function without you?
That's right.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Sorry, that's a bit not being. There's better ways to put it, but it's like a blunt way of saying if you're out of the equation. We're not saying you should go and play in traffic, Will, but we're
Well,
saying
that woke me up this morning when you said that. I'm not going out today.
just mind the buses, yeah.
So, Colby, I'm in this conversation, I'm just hearing these like little nuggets, and it strikes me that what you're talking about is having honest, clear self-reflection on who you are and what you want to do, and be prepared for change. And that's, that is just again a real nugget in terms of, if you're a founder, co-founder, building a company, what's your passion, what's your, mission, if you will, and can that endure or shift with the changing times if you're acquired, and everything that comes with that. It's interesting. We were just acquired by the water foundry was by Earth Finance, and it's been an interesting journey. It's been a good journey, and the first company I had that was sold, I didn't have that clarity that you're talking about. This time I did.
Mm-hmm.
Having that and being comfortable in it is, I think, a really, really important point in all of this, because data, you're right, data rooms, it's bull. You get what you get out of a data room, but you're always buying people. Not buying people, but you're building a team of people, and they're all different. So,
I
Yeah,
thought
that's right.
it was
to death, but
interesting.
it's really, really interesting that you brought this up.
I thought it was interesting, Colby, you mentioned to sort of be honest and transparent with the team that you're taking with you to be, if you're being acquired, and that it will be a shock. Because my former publishing company was acquired, much big American organization, and I think they're not to speak negatively of the situation, but there's a lot of uneasiness and rumors flying around about, we think we're being bought, we don't know. And everyone thought it would be, roses and unicorns. But unfortunately, after that, there was a lot of, as is often the way I found out the hard way, some things were shut down and offices shut down, and there was a fair bit of redundancy in which I was made redundant. But none of that was laid forward. Do you know what I mean? None of that was communicated and sort of said, not even that it would be a shock that this stuff would be coming. So yeah, that was my the first time of going through an acquisition, and a little bit naive and wet behind the ears. But now I know if it happens again, maybe. And it's not always, it doesn't always work out that route, right? With kind of, but I think having gone through it, like you say, to sort of tell the team from early on as you can what's going to happen and the changes would benefit everyone.
Hard for me to imagine you being redundant, Tom.
I know, right? I know, but that was the catalyst to be here with you today, Will, on the stream and the birth of Atlantean. So actually, redundancy was probably the best thing that ever happened to me, ironically enough.
Change is good.
Yeah, change is really good. It was the system shock needed to go and do my own thing. So in fact, had it not been for that acquisition and the redundancy, I'd probably still be there right now. So
Yeah, look, Tom, transparency is good. And then, there is the fact that sometimes you just don't know, right? It's
Right.
not a question of like, hey,
Yeah.
here's what's going to happen, I'm just not telling you. Like that's one thing, which is a very bad thing. On the other hand, it's like, well, you just don't actually know. When you acquire a company, or when you are acquired, you say, well, hey, you know what? We have an idea of what this is going to look like, but we don't know.
Right.
But going back to, as you're building a company, like in the startup phase, and you're a small team and growing, that attitude that, for example, like, I'm not the best CEO there ever is. Like, there could be somebody better at it than me, and I need to be ready for that. The same thing, like if you're the software developer, like you might not be the ultimate answer in software development for XYZ. There might be somebody better, and that's okay if you're ready to shift, change, say, well, okay, actually getting people better than myself was one of the keys to success, right?
Right.
But having that attitude of things will change, And just what we're trying to do is continuously improve, both personally and as a company, and that's good. That builds the right foundation for scaling up, because scaling up means things are going to change all the time. It builds the right foundation for acquiring a company when you realize like, oh, well, we thought we were really smart, like we're the bigger company, but it turns out these guys like with 10 people have done a better job at things than we did. Like, oh, okay, well, that's good. That's great. How do we change and learn with that? And then being acquired, realizing like, oh yeah, I guess, what I built my identity over is still subject to change, and it can be done differently and can be done better. And that's okay. I can still participate and still make an impact. Right? That attitude's got to carry through the whole way. There is, in building startups, and especially in the water technology space, right? There's a few companies that are going to scale up and attract attention of an Autodesk or a Siemens, a big company. A lot more are trying to attract the attention of venture capital investors or private equity investors. But some of the same concepts are really important here. Not the bit where it's like, oh, you're going to be part of a much larger organization. But the fact is, if you've got a nice startup of 30 people and you attract the attention of private equity, and they say, we love what you're doing, one of their first questions will be, hey, if you had a lot more money, what would you do with that money?
Oh, yeah, of course.
Right? And that's the golden question, right? If you don't have a good answer to that question, well, then you don't have any business asking for money. But that they really want to know, right? There's hey, we've got money.
Right.
What would you do with it?
Right.
And yeah, don't worry about it. Like, there's not another big corporation that's going to come in and make you redundant, Tom. In fact, what it is there's a bunch of people coming in and say, hey, Tom, what are you doing with our money? Did you do something good? How are you going to make this thing bigger, better, faster? Just yourselves. And that same attitude of saying, oh, actually what I might do with money is get people that are better at doing some of the things that we do. And, perhaps, execute these plans that we haven't been able to execute. We've got the plans, but we haven't been able to execute them because we don't have the money. And so, again, kind of preparing for acquisition for a strategic buyer like Autodesk is one thing. Preparing for acquisition by equity owners is similar, but a little bit different in that you're not necessarily dealing with the dynamics of merging teams together, but you're still dealing with dynamics of things have got to change, and they've got to change quickly.
Oh, yeah.
And do you have a vision, and do you have a plan, and can you execute it? And do you have the people to do that? And if you don't have the people, hurry up and get them. I had a great experience in initially being acquired by EQT Partners, where one of the first questions they asked me is like, hey, who's your CFO? We've got a head of finance, but I don't really have a CFO, right? And their mind's just like, what? You don't have a CFO? I'm like, well, I don't really need a CFO. Right? That's my opinion. Like, we don't really need a CFO. I'm pretty good at the finance side. I do a lot of that strategic stuff, and then we've got a head of finance, and she does a fine job of, right? And they basically said, go hire a CFO right now, right? And I'm thinking, well, that's a little weird. I mean, that seems like a waste of money, but okay. Again, thinking, all right, I don't know how everything works, and I don't know the best way to do it all. I guess we'll hire a CFO. Tell you what, my life changed with a good CFO.
Really?
All right? Oh, it was brilliant. It was fantastic. It enabled the company. It enabled me to stop pretending to be a CFO and actually do the things I was good at. And then that same thing happened when they said, hey, who's your global revenue? Who's responsible? Who's your CRO? And I said, well, I kind of do that. Like sales and marketing, I do that. And they're like, well, you're pretty good, Colby, but you probably should hire somebody who's really good. Right? And as a founder, you might be like, well, wait a minute. You you've been all nice to me and you've given us money and now you're saying I'm not very good at my job. No, that's not really what they're saying. They're saying
Right.
there are people that are better than you, and actually you could be more productive and more useful, not pretending to be a CFO and a CRO and
Right.
all the other things. Get some great people. Scale up quickly with great people. And so that attitude of, I guess, again, being prepared for job change, that's going to be true whether you're taking venture capital money, private equity money, or being acquired by a large company is going to change. And, it sounds a little trite, but like, look for the good, right?
Right.
The intentions are almost always good intentions in that, hey, we want to be bigger, we want to grow faster, we want to provide more service. That's generally the goal. And we just kind of have to
It's
get
freeing
over
up.
ourselves a little bit.
So Colby, I do hope you write a book. And I'm being serious.
Sounds like a lot of work, Will.
It is a lot of work.
You can hire someone, Colby, to do it for you.
I can hire someone better than me.
A CWO, Chief Writing Officer. There you go.
Look, there are LLMs out there that'll write it for you, but no, I'm being serious. And this is me being serious, Colby, which is rare. But the nugget in this conversation, and I keep coming back to this, is that you talked about people. I mean, coming into it, obviously we thought, all right, we're going to talk about digital transformation, digital tech, how it, either scales or doesn't scale in the water sector. But you got to the heart of it, in my view, which is building teams, a culture, a mission, a vision, and all those pivots, those decision points along the way when you build something and you exit and you join a different group and so on. So for me, that was really the valuable part here.
Well, it is the key. Joining Autodesk, that was a big transition for Innovyze. But the people at Autodesk also said, we have a vision of creating, water infrastructure software that will, serve the world, improve the state of play in the water industry, right? And so those people and my people, like, we can get along with that. Are we okay?
Right.
Things might be bumpy, things will change. It's not all going to be the same, but if we have a shared vision as people, I mean that's how we can go forward. And
Cool.
that's what made it possible, and that's what Autodesk continues to do with the Innovyze team is we build new technology, put
Right.
out new capability, and that's what holds it all together, I guess, are the people with the vision for improving the water industry.
That is a great quote and a great closing quote, Colby, and the title of your new book. What's that?
I like the humility and energy quote from Colby. That should be the first part of the title: humility and energy, life after a $1 billion sale or something like that. We need to. I'll think it through for the podcast as well. But yeah, listen, Colby, thanks so much. Really enjoyed hearing from you in your time, kind of during the building of the company, acquiring companies, the culture. Kind of building organizations that are mission driven, and to kind of also hear what you're doing now, and thankfully still involved in the water industry and lending your expertise to smaller companies to kind of go through a similar process. So yeah, thanks so much for joining us, and yeah, we'd love to sort of keep in touch with you.
Of course. Yeah, happy to keep in touch, and great conversation. I know that you and I both we could continue for 6 to 8 hours on this topic, but this has been a good one.
Good, but really happy that you enjoyed this. And again, I think this is invaluable insights, are invaluable insights. Well, hope to see you at a conference or two this year.
One of the great benefits of not being an executive of a water company is I don't have to go to so many conferences. So I might see you, Will, but I got to be honest, that wasn't my favorite part of life. going to conferences. So
Well, apart
step
from
back.
apart from the conference that you spoke at for me, right, Colby?
Well, of course,
Apart
I
from
mean,
that,
still-
apart from
Well,
that,
I'll still be.
that was an exception.
yeah,
That's right. Exception just for you, Tom. That's why I did it. No.
that's what I like
Anyway,
to hear.
yeah. Look
That's
forward to seeing
great.
you both around.
Sounds good. Colby, take care of yourself. Really
Thank you.
enjoyed it.
Thanks, Colby. Speak soon.
Thanks.
Take care.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.